today's session, we're going to be talking about mastering your extension color. So, extension coloring, I think, is one of the most important parts of the extension service. And the reason why it's so important is because I think this is where the real magic happens. So, I put together a couple reasons of why custom coloring is important to hand tied extension services. So, for me, I truly believe that when you custom color the extension hair, it truly does customize the extension service for every single client. Every single client sitting in your chair is not going to have the same cookie cutter hair coloring that the extensions come in. So, when we are able to adjust the actual colors of the wefts that we are using, not just by coloring the wefts with hair color, but by layering the hair to actually create different dimension, it truly does create a custom colored experience for every single person receiving the service. So, when we are thinking about creating seamless blends, this is something else that custom coloring really does make possible. So, when we are creating a root or when we are adding a low light, we can create a seamless blend with the client's actual hair because we are able to really take into consideration what the low light looks like in the client's hair. What do we need the low light to look like in the extension hair? So it really does make the extensions look less extensiony. I always love to keep extension hair in stock. So for us, we like to keep your basic colors. So we'll have a platinum blonde, we'll have a golden blonde, we will have a dark blonde, we will have a light brown, a medium brown, your average, level 6 and level 4, and then we'll have our darkest of darks. So when we are just carrying our basic solid colors, it allows us to keep more hair in stock when we know how to custom color the wefts. When we keep hair in stock, we can have our basic colors and we can customize them to each client. And having hair in stock, I think, is so important for so many reasons. We are actually going to cover this later on in the class, the reasons why I think you should stock hair in your salon. But when you know how to truly customize and color the hair that you have in stock, it does allow you just to keep the basic colors, you to carry a good amount of stock that you can actually accommodate clients. Custom coloring is also important because it allows you to change the extension hair with the client's hair. So say, you have a blonde client and she's really feeling like she wants low lights or she wants to make an adjustment to her hair. When we know how to custom color and the ability to custom color the hair allows us to let the client really get the most out of their investment because we can transform their extension hair with the actual hair transformation that we're making with the hair on their head. By being able to add a root or being able to change the color, it really does allow them to not really be stuck with one color for 6 to 9 months. It really does allow them to also change their look if they're feeling like they want something different, which I think is a huge selling point. When you're investing a good chunk in extension hair, knowing that you are not committed to the same look for 9 months is something that I think is really important. And then, of course, when we can custom color the hair, it allows us to keep the hair looking fresh. So when clients come in, we should be rerooting, we should be retoning, and we should be updating the lowlights if they need them. But by, having time and knowing how to custom color the hair, it really does keep the extension hair looking fresh. Since our clients are able to reuse the hair, being able to update the extension hair when they come in and have their own hair updated is a nice little perk, and it is also a nice Again, marketing and selling point. So some things that you need to know when it comes to actually custom coloring hair. So when you are formulating your extension coloring, you want to make sure that you take into consideration that extension hair goes through a very extensive chemical process to make the extension hair all of the same color. Some of the extension hair comes from different donors, so it's actually coming from different heads of hair, and they are kind of all being thrown together, which sounds kind of weird. So when they are processing the hair, it really does go through an extensive decolorization. It goes through repigmenting. Especially your lighter colors, they go through a more extensive process than your darker tones. So your extension hair will absorb your cool tones in your hair color. So whenever you are formulating your hair color, you always want to make sure that you are formulating on the warmer side, because you do not want your extension hair to look drab, or you don't want it to turn purple or blue. It's happened. So knowing formulation is very important. I always say, if you are unsure, just test one of your wefts first before you color an entire batch of hair. Testing and making sure that it's the right formula is very important. You do not want to ruin a batch of extension hair, because it is a very extensive and a very expensive mistake. So another thing that is very important is that you are using the right type of product. With extension hair, you want to make sure that you are using permanent or a semi-permanent hair color. And this should be used because this is going to create a long-lasting wear, and it's going to create a more opaque coverage, which is going to give you a more natural look. Your demi colors will give you a very sheer coverage, and they tend to fade out of the hair very quickly, which means if your client isn't coming back for 8 weeks, then their hair color will not last the full 8 weeks if you're using a demi. So if you are set on using a demi, then that is going to result in you needing to have the client come in for a mid-maintenance appointment, which would be like them coming in for a toner or a color adjustment halfway through their extension wear. I also want to add that if you are wanting to add warmth to a cooler extension color, then you may need to use an ammonia-based color. This will help you add more warmth to the hair, because sometimes that can be a struggle. So that looks like using your permanent hair color line. Our permanent hair color line comes with a developer that allows us to use it as a toner. So I don't know if all hair color lines have this ability, but ours does. So it turns our permanent line into more of a semi line. This has a tendency to just work faster and have a longer lasting wear when it comes to adding warmer tones and when it comes to toning. Another thing I will add is that if you are going to use purple shampoo on your blonde tones to kind of cool the actual extensions down, we definitely recommend using a purple shampoo bath instead of using a direct application of the purple shampoo on the extensions. Sometimes if you directly apply the purple shampoo right onto blonde extensions, you can get little blue or purple dots that are very hard to remove. So doing the shampoo bath is much more efficient, and I feel like it gives you an even application, and it actually will result in less errors. So this is huge, and I always like to touch base on this. Never lighten your extension hair. I don't care what clients say. Never put lightener on your extension hair. This will break down the extension hair. The hair is already put through an extensive process. What will happen is that it will damage the extension hair. The hair will actually start to mat and get very knotty, and the client will have to brush their hair a million times a day, and their extension hair will start to break down, which means that eventually the hair will start to break from the bottom, and their hair will get shorter and shorter and shorter because the extension hair is breaking off. So now that we've gone through the tiny little details, let's get started and let's get coloring.